Today on the show, I'm sitting down with Nora Gomez, a merchandising powerhouse that's been the brains behind billion-dollar brands like Nebraska Furniture Mart, Pier 1, and even Victoria's Secrets. What was Nora's most excellent New York adventure, and what does it take to build a next-generation team in an era of AI, D2C, and tech-driven disruption? Nora Gomez is here, and the FAM podcast starts right now. Did you know that 86% of customers buy from the first business that responds? And if you text back very quickly, that number jumps to over 90%. That's why Podium's AI employee, Jerry, is a game changer. Jerry never sleeps, never takes a lunch break, and never puts in a 2-week notice. He's always on, responding in seconds, so you never lose a lead again. Turn missed calls into texts, capture more leads, and close more deals, all with Podium. Want to see how it works? Get a demo today at podium.com/fam. Podium, because speed wins sales.
In the mattress world, a no at checkout means a lost sale. That's where American First Finance comes in. We help you say yes to more customers, even if their credit isn't perfect. With fast setup, tailored solutions, and support every step of the way, you're not just offering a way to pay. You're inviting them to Yesville, where more people get approved and customers can take home the mattress they need today. Visit AmericanFirstFinance.com to get started.
For the first time ever, top retailers can carry the luxury mattress line one of America's top sleep retailers has kept to themselves until now. Introducing Prana Sleep. Crafted from 100% natural materials featuring luxury latex quilted directly into the top panel, it's a feel no competitor can match. Born from decades of retail experience, Prana Sleep delivers premium performance, customer loyalty, and unmatched sleep satisfaction. Your competition is going to hate selling against Prana Sleep because nothing compares. Apply now at pranasleep.com.
Welcome to the FAM podcast with Mark Kinsley. This is where the best in the bedding business get even better.
Welcome to the FAM podcast. Nora Gomez, CEO and founder of Next Generation Growth. It's so nice to be able to sit down with you in person. Now, I got to start with something that's really relevant to the mattress industry. You were the chief merchandising officer at Nebraska Furniture Mart, and you spent 7 years there. First of all, tell us about yourself and tell us about that role specifically. And of course, everybody here wants to know about the mattress business.
Of course, absolutely. So good, really great question. Actually, that was like 4 questions in one.
Yeah.
So
Going machine gun right out of the gates. Just all the questions all at once, sort them, spin the plates, and see which one falls.
All right, so let's go. We'll go right to the experience at Nebraska Furniture Mart because I want to make sure that we talk about the merchandising and what makes that store so special. And at the end of the day, it's the assortment, it is the pricing strategy that they have, and it is the awesome people that they have. And no mistake, probably some of the very best work in the mattress departments in all of their stores. And I don't need to tell this audience, but you have really got to know your stuff and be able to make sure that you're guiding the customer and fitting their needs, not your needs, but their needs. And I don't think there's a place on earth that is quite like the Mart, as we have affectionately called it. And all of the different brands are there. A beautiful purple installation is there. They're very big, obviously, in all of the Tempur Sealy brands. And then some of the newer, what would be defined as some of the newer brands, Avocado being one of those, and some of the higher end brands as well. So I think there's something for everybody on their floor, as all of the top of bed. It is a slotted floor plan. And so, dialing for spots on that floor plan, I can totally feel the manufacturers, the brands, being able to come to them with a point of differentiation and a product promise of the best sleep experiences that can be found, in the industry. I think that that's the foundation of their whole department.
You mentioned assortment, pricing, and people.
Mhm.
So whenever it comes to what you noticed as being the differentiated process or what the people do or the pricing or the assortment, what is it specifically about the mattress department that makes it such a rocket ship among not only within the walls of Nebraska Furniture Mart, but just in the industry in general? It's such a huge machine.
It's a huge machine and it's so personal. And I really do feel that sure, you could buy a mattress online. Absolutely, no problem. But if you are really in it for an investment, you really do have to be in people's showrooms to be able to experience the mattresses themselves. And, the most tenured, talented salespeople can sell any kind of mattress, but the really good ones will qualify what the customer's needs are, right? And direct them. And also you have to kind of gauge what's their size of wallet. What can they spend? How can they get a premium sleep quality when perhaps their budget isn't at a premium level? And so that's where I really see the power of the salesperson coming in and being able to qualify that without making the customer feel that they're getting anything less than what they deserve.
We're talking with Nora Gomez here. Nora, former Chief Merchandising Officer for Nebraska Furniture Mart, CEO and founder of Next Generation Growth. And we're going to get to what that is. But let's stay with Nebraska Furniture Mart for just a moment, because in your 7-year tenure there, within the mattress department specifically, were there any big changes that you made or you drove?
Many of the stores were in need of updates in the mattress areas, shopability, convenience, just that overall customer experience needed quite a bit of updating. So leaning into the vendor partners to be able to help with that updating. So you'll see in the Kansas City store new installations with bed gear and purple and the whole layout of that area getting redone. You'll see that in Texas, and you'll start to be seeing that in Omaha, where they actually put bedding very close to the mattress department and created bedding walls and things like that. So it was less about the assortment because the buyer there is top notch, second to none. It was more about getting the environments for the customer updated and giving them the best in-store experience.
We're jumping around a little bit, but you have a background also in fashion and in direct to consumer sales. You touched on it just for a moment there. The customer coming in, maybe they've been primed by searching online. What was that like in recent years, especially? Were the salespeople having to kind of overcome some of the objections about buying it online? Some people talk about stores having this media effect for the direct to consumer brands. What was that conversation like, and what was that selling experience like at NFM whenever the direct to consumer brands really started to take off?
Interestingly enough, many of what the strategy was, and I think still is to make sure that whatever the experience was in store, that there was that thread that pulled it through online for the mart. And so understanding that the direct to consumer brands were booming, but then you had those direct to consumer brands that ultimately came into brick and mortar. And I think about some of those brands, and Purple being one of those brands, and Casper also being one of those brands, and now they're in brick and mortar stores, and they're at MVP kind of levels in big box stores too. And so I think that in this particular category, the direct to consumer experience and the research is being done online, but the experience of actually laying down on a mattress and finding the right pillow and all of those things, well, they're going to come in store and they're going to try those things for sure. They may convert and go back online and buy it, which It's no problem if that particular retailer has that beautiful synergy between the direct to consumer website experience translating into the store and vice versa.
I've been curious about something lately, and it really goes down to the consumer level. Do you think that consumers believe they can get as good of a mattress if it's been smashed down inside of a box?
Interestingly enough, I have not purchased a mattress for myself in a box, but have for, the kids, whether it was for their dorm rooms or for their first apartments. And I've been pleasantly surprised with products that have been smashed in a box, as you like to say.
Or call it roll packed or compressed and roll packed?
Right, exactly. I think that the thing about it is that it has a place. It has a place in the assortment. It has a place in the customer, kind of the customer profiling. And so it's not my first choice, but I do believe there's a place for it.
So, Nora, I want to get into your background. I'm going to
Sure.
rattle off a few things, but we're going to talk about next generation growth first. This is your new company, this is your new endeavor, but
It
you've
is.
been to
Yes.
over 100 countries doing
Mhm.
sourcing and design. You were with Pier 1, and you said that was one of your favorite corporate experiences of your life, and we'll talk about why. You've been with Tuesday Morning, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Victoria's Secrets, and some other companies that you brought your expertise with design and sourcing and merchandising. So how has all of that led to this new company, and what is it that you're
Thank you for that question. So I have to tell you this story. And it was in April, and my husband and our daughter, we were on vacation in Gig Harbor, Washington. Beautiful Airbnb on the Puget Sound. And we were having a glass of wine as the sun was going down. And I was incredibly quiet, which is highly unusual for me. And my daughter said, "What's up, Mom?" And I said, I think I'm being called to do something different. And that was the first time I actually had voiced it to anybody. I've been kind of feeling it, but just kind of said, no, you can't. No, now's not time. No. Maybe call it a midlife crisis. I don't know. But my husband and daughter were like, "Tell us, what are you thinking?" And I said, for many years, I've been thinking about how I could be more helpful and more impactful to more people and help them to be the best leaders they can be, help them to build the best teams that they can build, help them to build great businesses, and just overall being a good human, right? And so that's kind of where the idea was born, and voiced into the universe. And the premise of next generation growth is building tomorrow's leaders today. And I like to use the bridge analogy quite a bit. And so it's building bridges, thinking about how we have 5 working generations out in the workforce. So as a leader, you have a responsibility to getting your strategy down to the frontline staff, and that could mean also across this multi-generation team of hundreds of people that you're responsible for. And as well as I do that messaging has to be so crystal clear. But more importantly, people really need to understand what skin in the game they have. How does my role affect your strategy, right? I liken it to a display team, and the display team being responsible for getting the product out of the warehouse and onto the floor. Well, guess what? If the product doesn't make it to the floor, we can't sell it, right? And if you can't sell it, you're not going to make your numbers. And if you don't make your numbers, the stock doesn't go up, and all of the things. And so I think there's clarity of messaging that really has to happen. And the second part of that is understanding that strategy isn't just on a piece of paper or hanging on a wall. Having a great strategy is the easy part. Did you know that 70% of strategies do not make it and are not executable and break down? And why do they break down? Because there isn't enough synergy, there isn't enough communication around how to take that strategy and get the whole organization rallied around it so that you can turn it into high revenue producing.
Let's go there for a minute. I mean, if you're a leader right now and you're listening and you're thinking about maybe some of the initiatives that you've deployed that have failed, let's say that you're a medium to larger business. What are some of those fundamentals that you teach people, or the things that you've absorbed over the years that really lead to that organizational momentum, and the strategies don't just sit on a shelf collecting dust?
Well, I have to tell you, in the beginning years of my career, I worked for highly matrixed organizations who prided themselves on this big binder of policies and procedures and processes. And it was so overwhelming. It's like, no, that's not what it says on page 150 of this Bible of how to do business at the limited, let's say. It comes down to very simple things. What's in it for me? That's the number one thing. And that puts your people first, right? That puts your team members first. They have to understand what role they play in strategy. The second part of this is strategy is not a to-do list. And so many times leaders mistake it for that. One, two, or three very big focus things is what your strategy should be foundational on. And usually it's around people. Usually it's around, growing the business somehow. And thirdly, it is, kind of meshing all of that together are you going to be an industry leader, or are you going to be an industry follower? Are you going to do the latest technology and understand why you're using it and what it can do for you and your teams? Or are you happy just the way things are? And if you are, that's fine. And if it's working for you, that's fine. At some point, though, you're going to have to kind of join this century and be able to move around and shake it up a little bit. I also learned that through the years that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to fail. And that was really hard for me to grasp. I'm a Virgo. And so, and I don't know if people believe in that kind of stuff or not, but it's we're very much perfectionists. And my daughter said something to me one day when she was growing up, and she was showing me this beautiful picture she had made in school. And she said, Mom, art is not about perfection. And I kind of stole that from her and said, you know what? You're right. And retail is not about perfection. Nobody has a crystal ball. But by the same token, if you're listening more than you're talking, and you're educating yourself more than you're trying to educate others, it goes back to, I have to be the best version of myself before I can help others. And so those are some of the big lessons. And surrounding yourself with people who know things that you don't know, but making sure that those folks and yourself remain humble and recognize that they're part of a team and everyone's got a role to play. If you can create that playing field, that is utopia. That is amazing.
That's such a great breakdown. Let's break it down even further, because you said strategy is not a to-do list, and strategy isn't really a goal. Your goal might be, we want to sell $1 million a month more. Okay, that's a goal. You probably turn it into a SMART goal or whatever framework you use. So what is the strategy piece of that? If it's not necessarily just the goal or the to-do list, how do you tell leaders or help them define what strategy is?
Strategy to me is it's more about the how and the why than it is the actual methodology to execute, if you will. And so, brand identity is a huge strategic initiative for people. Okay, well, that's great. But what does that mean? Does that mean you're trying to define your brand? Does that mean that you're trying to be like someone else? Does that mean that you're rebranding? We all know what happened with Cracker Barrel. Sorry, just
the logo is back. Okay, everybody, calm down and let's go get some hash browns.
I know, but have you seen what they did to Grater's ice cream? Okay, I don't know if you know who Grater's is, but they had this wonderful old-fashioned kind of candy stripe packaging, and now it's different. And that's okay as long as the ice cream stays the same. And I think that's the strategy piece of it. You can't you cannot forget what got you to the dance, but you also have to remember that you have to evolve to be relevant. And it's the evolution that's the strategy. And how much of it can you focus on? It's not the tactics to execution. It's really being able to say, you know what? We are going to be the world's best advisory business out there. And these are the things that we are going to focus on. And the focus of those two or three things that I mentioned earlier is really important, because if you try to do more than that, then it does become the to-do list.
I remember one time there's a great book called, I think it's called Being Strategic. And my father-in-law gave it to me, and it had just a little sort of narrative about climbing a mountain and how the top of the mountain is the goal. Fantastic. So how do you get there becomes the strategy. And part of the strategy piece was looking around and saying, well, what resources do we have? There's a helicopter. Let's just take that to the top. If the goal is to get to the top as quickly as possible, you look around, you have resources. Maybe you have a helicopter, you do that. If you don't have a helicopter, maybe you have an ATV that can take you up part of the way, and then you can climb the rest. So looking at all of the resources you have can inform the how we're going to get there.
100%. And I would even take that a step further. I did a LinkedIn post, I think it was last month, and it talked about spending time with my mom in, the little beach town of my childhood. One of the things that she imparted to me was, remember, Nora, the goal is the top of the mountain. The strategy is discovering who you are on the way. And that resonated so much with me, and continues to resonate with me today. And it's using the resources, it's discovery, and it's not losing sight of what your goal is, but it's a reminder to say, hey, you know what? It's kind of like the, life is a journey, not a destination type of analogy. But more importantly, she tied it back to, how are you growing and evolving as you strive to reach this particular goal? So I think we're on the same page there.
Whenever you talk to leaders and people that you're working with through next generation growth, what are some of the themes that emerge? What are some of the similar struggles that people have, or opportunities for improvement that they've honed in on?
So the most recent one is this whole business of AI. Everyone knows they have to do it, but the way that they are, and when I say everyone, I'm specifically talking to leaders, they're kind of saying to their teams, just go and do AI. We know we've got to do it, but we don't have any strategy around it. We don't know why. And I hear that from some very high level people in very large organizations. And it kind of struck me. So I decided to probe a little bit further and talk to more high level executives about it. And it's not the technology. We always have to remember that. And I know you're on an AI journey as well. It's not about the technology. It's about how the technology enhances the human brain and the decision making that goes with, right? The technology is data, right? And it's only as good as the prompts. It's only as good as what you feed it, right? And so when you hear people say things like, AI is going to take my job away, well, maybe, but people who are educated and know how to use it in business to make their processes more efficient, to be time saving, to get the data that they need to make informed decisions. Those are the people that are going to take your job away, not AI and the technology, right? And so that was an aha moment for me too. I was talking to a younger business person, and it was after I had talked to a group of college kids and first year out of college in business. And this young lady came up to me and she asked me, she said, is AI going to take my job away? And I thought, wow, if you're thinking that now at your age and at this, point, and you're just starting out in your career, where is the opportunity to educate both the newest to the workforce, but also, more importantly, at the top of the workforce to say, don't just go and do AI. Let's put a strategy around it. Let's understand where our pain points are as an organization and how it can help us.
We had 78 seats filled in my AI course on the very first session that we did. And, the fundamental skill we're teaching is how to communicate with these robots, essentially. And we had all kinds of tips and tricks and hacks to get you there, but people are very interested in it. And the analogy that I use is in the very first Iron Man movie, Tony Stark had the suit. And so he was the superhero. He didn't even really have to be able to use it that well. He just was able to use it in somewhat. He became the superhero. But by Iron Man 3, many people had access to that same suit. So who becomes the superhero? Who has the most power? It's the one who can use it the best. And I think that's what we're seeing is organizations are trying to unlock enterprise value. They're not exactly sure how to do it. They're not exactly sure if they should empower their IT teams or their marketing teams or who should be in charge of this. And so going through that process of, number one, I think it starts at the top. It needs to start with leadership. And like you said, it's getting clear so that you understand why you're doing this and then how you're going to get there. And so much of the why for me that I've noticed is if you have things that suck your time up, things you hate doing, things you hate paying people to do, guess what that's going to allow you to do? If you can automate it away or you can use AI to compress down the amount of time you spend with that, it does one thing very important for you. It allows you to spend more time with human beings. And that cannot be
100%.
replicated.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. I think about it, and again, what I'm trying to do is I'm not going to teach people technology. That's not what this is about. It's what are the strategic frameworks, and I'm not going to give you a tutorial on how to use chat, although you better know how to prompt because that's super important, right? And then how do you build confidence in leaders to actually lead through this uncertainty? I liken it to the internet. You remember, you're on the phone and you have the noise and oh my God, the internet's going to know everything about me. Well, guess what? It does, and so does AI. And you're not gonna hide from it. So you might as well understand it. And then there's change management that has to happen. And I think that is where the sweet spot is, because if you don't have a good change management plan, then it becomes just a lot of people in an organization using AI for whatever they want to use it for. And maybe they're using tools that are not company approved, but they don't know that because they don't know if, that the company has approved tool.
And the companies don't know what tools they should approve because they're worried about data and privacy but maybe everybody has access to everything. I don't know. And so navigating just the technology stack piece is really tough for leaders.
It's very tough. It's very tough. And so I've actually talked to, as I said, top level CEOs, but I've also talked to other, kind of advisors, if you will, that are in this space, but are kind of focusing more on an implementation of technology and not putting together the roadmap that has to happen prior to even making, I'm sorry, my cat's here, prior to
pets on the podcast.
I don't think you want her.
We've had cats walk across keyboards right in front of cameras. It's okay.
But helping, them understand, helping these leaders understand that they're not alone. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It is happening. And truthfully, the people who get on the bus now are the ones that are going to have the staying power later. And it's just that simple. And it's easy. It's really, really easy to say, we're doing AI. It's really hard to understand why and what that change management looks like in your organization.
So well put. It's going to be something that we're going to navigate, I think, there's near-term navigation, but there's definitely long-term navigation as well, because we're going to end up in a world where not only you have the most powerful assistant in your pocket that operates across all domains of expertise, that knows all the world's knowledge. It's all right there. Being able to be a good boss and unlock the power of that assistant's another thing. But we're also going to see a world where, is going to trigger events on your behalf and you're not going to think about it. But then agents are going to go out and do work on your behalf using your tools, using your technology, using your subscriptions, using your computer. And when that happens, there's this whole other layer of management of agents that's going to come into play. And I think that's probably going to be one of the hottest roles. You're talking about that college student. Like, if you could figure out how to manage agents that do work on a company's behalf and do it securely and be able to recommend the right technology, you're in the catbird seat, I think.
I think so too. And, I think about too, once you have the tools deployed, there's a gap, right? There's a gap between the tools being deployed and the value captured. And the definition of that is time, right? So you have organizations that are very far ahead, and they've adopted, and there's again, Harvard studies that say they're finding 3 hours or 4 hours or 8 hours a week of time. Well, guess what? If you don't have a strategy on how to use that time, or how to direct your team, how to use the time saved, that's another opportunity.
Nora, I think it's
right?
super simple. It's one word: beach.
Happy hour, two
Happy
words.
hour, 2 words.
but seriously, all kidding aside, the companies that figure that out first will leave everyone else behind.
I think it's a great point. I mean, we just saw the announcement come out recently. Amazon cut 14,000 jobs, and they said it was 100% due to AI. And they said, we're shifting our focus to operate like the world's largest startup. And I think that resonated with me, because there are no secret corners to tuck away in anymore. There are no deep file cabinets where processes and binders and keepers of the kingdom are going to be able to hide, because AI is going to be able to do so much more than you could ever imagine. And so think about yourself as like a startup again. If we had to come at ourselves without the barnacles and the legacy systems and all this junk that goes along with building a business over time, how would we do it? How would we cut our own throat and operate like a startup again? And my gosh, that gets into all the stuff you're talking about with growth and change management and tech stacks and empowering people. And there's a lot that goes into it, but I think, you could even use your assistant to help get a game plan together, or call Nora, of course.
That's right. Well, and again, that's exactly the work I do. I mean, I really try to work with leadership teams, and not only build strategies and the frameworks around those strategies, but to be able to have a change management plan and the capability to turn this into something that is an actual business outcome.
Well, okay, help us understand that term. Like, I understand change management, but what are the steps along the change management path?
I think the steps will vary, because it will go back to the very beginning when you're assessing, where is this company at on their AI journey? Where is this leadership team at on the AI journey, right? So I kind of call that the calibration phase, right? And once you have that, and you've got a starting point, then you move into that integration phase, but you're doing it together. Because remember, I go back to, you have 25-year-olds in the workforce, all the way up to 60, 70. Gosh, there's probably people out there that are like my mom, who worked until she was close to 80 years old. And they're going to have different entry points into this AI world. And so how do you get those bridges built? That's part of the change management. And how do you get the bridges built to the same destination? Different bridges can come to the same destination. And so I think
not
about
everybody
it.
gets across, and your job is going to be, we built the bridge, did everybody cross, head count, we're all here. We're all on this new piece of land. We all
Right.
understand what this piece of land is, and we all understand what it took to build that previous piece of land. We're going to start working on this building on this new piece of land. Cool.
Because
We're
we
all
built
here.
it together.
Yeah.
Right. We built it together. It wasn't a mandate from Oz behind the curtain that said, you must do AI,
Do
figure it
AI.
out.
I love that phrase. Hey guys, go do some AI. Okay. Like come back to me once you've done some AI and then we'll talk.
That's right. That's
We'll go
right.
from there. What do you think? I mean, just based on like, if you're going to get really tactical with it, like what are some of the cool like tools that you're using in AI, or maybe something that you've stumbled upon or automated or deployed an agent on that you're like, this is awesome?
So, interestingly enough, I'm working on building my own assistant right now. And I never thought in a million years that this would be something that I would totally geek out about. But I'm really, really into it. And I've never done anything like that before. I've never coded anything before in my life. This is all self taught. And, the other thing is, I am taking a couple of classes, one at Stanford and one at Harvard, about AI and leadership. And then the other one is AI and business. And how can I expect to educate people about it if I myself don't have the credentials to do that? Right. And so that goes back to the investing in yourself, being as knowledgeable as you can. However, I have to admit, I did tell my husband I'm having an affair with Claude. And he was like, whoa, who's Claude?
He sounds French.
And yes, he's a little French guy. And I what I love about Claude is not just the basic part of what it does, but the he really thinks on my behalf, and I'm training him with the prompts to really think on my behalf. And then that's when I go back to the power of the prompts. And there are so many different AI tools out there, simple things like Canva, that you can go in and say, hey, you know what? I want the logo for next generation growth to have this and that and the other thing. And then it spits out versions for you. You're like, well, no, not quite right. A little less of this, a little more of that. And then I call up Anna and say, hey, Anna, can you help me with this? Because she's got that expertise, right? Again, go back to, surround yourself with people that know things that you don't know.
This is
So,
such a good point, though. You can conquer not only the tyranny of the blank page, but also you can become a designer. You can become a video maker. You can sometimes just have it do things that you can react to, so that then, as the
mhm,
boss, you can be like, okay, not quite there. Let's refine it a little bit. But I always say it's easier to edit than create. And
uh,
so just getting
yes,
something
I
that you can
agree.
react to and edit is so valuable. I do it all the time. And plus, being in the creative field, like doing a lot of stuff in marketing, I want to be able to give my designers and my developers really good, clear instructions. And this has been a
Mhm.
game changer. It's a game changer, especially if you have creativity and vision and you kind of know what you're after. And that's a skill I think you can develop and develop it. Hey, I would say to my people in my class, y'all develop it by getting your hands in the clay, just experimenting every day.
Every day. I did another post on LinkedIn that was a picture of a living room. And all I asked was, can someone tell me what retailer this is? And in the end, and it got so much engagement and response. People are like, oh, that's our house. Oh, no, it's RH. Oh, no, it's this one. And at the end of the day, there were probably, of the 100 plus people that responded, two people said, that's an AI generated image. Here's what I see. And I was like, bravo, because it was an AI generated image that I threw out there. But how interesting that it fooled 98 of the 100 people into thinking that it was a true retailer.
It's wild. Let's go back to the real world for a minute, because I think there's going to be a lot to be said in the future, and the future is now, about IRL, like being there in real life. Well, in real life, you've gone to more than 100 countries, and I think you told me that there's a lot of happiness, a lot of sadness, a lot of stories. Uh,
Mhm.
you went to 30 to 40 different countries just doing sourcing and design. What
Mhm.
what do you know about design that you would love people in maybe the mattress industry or even the furniture industry to know? What are we missing?
You know what? I don't know if that's the question. I don't know if we're missing anything. I think that there is an appreciation for design at different levels. And design could be as simple as putting a sticker on your laptop. Oh, look, I designed my laptop. It's customized for me, right? Or there's so many mattress manufacturers that put so much design effort into that stitching and into that tufting on the top of the mattress, and they've created these beautiful beautiful places to lay down on. And I always thought to myself, why do they put so much effort into that when the customer's just going to cover it with sheets and top of bed and all of that? Well, we have to be able to create the emotional connection even before the sheets, even before the top of the bed. And believe it or not, I believe that the design on the top and the colors that are used are intriguing and motivational and create an emotional connection. And so I'm not sure that I would say that we're missing anything other than, remember, are you designing for yourself or are you designing for your customer? And sometimes that's kind of hard to separate.
Let's go there because I love what you said about, having some sort of emotional connection to that object whenever you see it. What are some of those principles of design that communicate emotion? Is it certain textures, certain colors, certain stitching? How do you communicate an emotion through an object like a mattress?
So I think the color is a universal language. So that to me is probably the first thing. The second thing is the visual of the stitching, and the stitching creates the comfort, and the stitching creates kind of that level of, if I'm going to lay down on this, how is it going to make me feel?
Hmm.
Right. So if you have waves that you have, or a wave like pattern, is it going to feel like I'm floating on the ocean? And it may be kind of far out to think that way, but that's exactly what I think of when I look at them. And the other part of that is combined with the color. So if it's waves and it's on, the blue covering, then I know I'm sleeping on the ocean. If it's, white, puffy, cloud like pattern and it's a white, puffy color, then yes, I'm sleeping on a cloud. And if it's purple and it's an egg crate, then I'm sleeping on an egg crate minus the eggs. But the reason why I think that's cool is that that egg crate or grid structure is meant to protect, and it's meant to, think about it, if there were actually eggs or glass beads or something like that in that actual structure, it's meant to protect. And so am I protected as I'm sleeping, and does that give me peace of mind?
Interesting. So yeah, you think about what that core emotion of safety and tranquility and protection and that
Mhm.
egg drop test, obviously, all of that swirls around and circulates in somebody's mind probably very quickly as they thin slice things and come up with, okay, I feel safe on this thing.
Exactly. I mean, what about all the bells and whistles that come with, the bed frames now? And, we have a bed frame that, the only thing it doesn't do is sleep for you. It warms you up, it cools you down, it gives you a massage, it gives you this massage up here. You can raise your head, but I don't have to raise mine. I mean, there's all of that going on too. So it's not just about the mattress per se. It's what are some of the other ways that the mattress is coming to life, basically, and helping to solve solutions of pain points that you may have, whether
Hmm.
it's, you have circulation problems, or you're cold at night, or you have an injury that you're trying to heal. The bed does become the sanctuary for wellness
You want to talk about some
110%.
emotion. I mean, put somebody on a mattress that they feel some sort of a connection to, and then raise those feet, raise that head, get them close to zero G and watch pain go away. and you'll have a deep emotional reaction from that person. That's why I'm always like, show the adjustable base every single time, because people have no idea what they're missing out on, especially if it leads to some pain relief. And that word right there, just relief. I mean, there are so many emotions attached to that: sadness and fear and anger, because they just want, and happiness, because they want that relief.
Yeah, there's such joy in relief, right?
There's joy and relief. Yeah. I love this because we're thinking about the emotions of the consumer first and making it connect back to the product. Now, you had told me something when we previously chatted that you want to talk about products. I think it gets into this idea of products being so important. But you had told me that one of the best 5 to 6 years experiences in your career was when you were at Pier 1. You were at Pier. What made that such a special experience, or one of the best of your career?
It became all about the CEO at the time was Alex Smith, and probably one of the most visionary leaders that I worked for. He had this beautiful way of he knew he had an idea, or he would ask a question and he knew the answer to the question, but somehow he would take you on this journey where it became about you knowing what the answer was, right? And one of the things that I loved with working on that leadership team and with the team is Pier One was founded on catering to the armchair traveler, people who couldn't travel to these far off places where mosaics are made, or bamboo vases, or papasan chairs. And it was the responsibility of the brand to bring that back to the customer. And so Alex made Product Hero. And when he made Product Hero, then all of these places around the world became such hero places, known for what part of that world journey, what part of that armchair traveler journey the products came from. And our we talk a lot in our country about the rules and the regulations around child labor, and around things that are probably not as important, if you will, in other areas. And I'm not saying child labor is not important in the world. What I'm saying is that there are cottage industries around the world where products are made in people's homes, and the family is part of making the products. So the kids go to school in the morning, they come home and they help their parents in small ways, whether it's separating good bamboo from bad bamboo, whether it's making sure that the workspace is clean. Those are things that I came to appreciate, because I think sometimes we're very quick to judge. This is way of life in different countries. I think about this factory. This it wasn't even a factory. It was really truly a cottage industry where the bamboo for a bamboo spun bamboo vase was sorted in one home, and then they would load it on the back of a motorbike and drive it up to the next home, where they would start to put it together into the shape. And then once the shape was done, they would load those shapes and take it to the next place where it was treated and then sprayed in the color. And so that's what I mean by a cottage industry. It's a family industry of homes that's just kind of the
I
way
grew
of
up in a farming
life.
community. I mean, you're out there, shoveling the pens, feeding the cows, milking the cows. I mean, that's what you do as a
100%.
kid. You
Yes.
participate in the family business.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know a lot of people that grew up in furniture stores, probably listening to this show. Like, yeah, I was moving stuff when I was 6 years old, and doing whatever mom or dad asked me to do to make sure the family business was going as strong. And what a great teaching opportunity as well.
It is. It is. And, but the first trip I took with Pier One, we started in India, and we were at this factory, and the factories, this particular one was a safe haven for women who came from, an unfortunate home life, women who had kids perhaps out of wedlock, or other things that may have happened. And so not only did this factory provide work, they provided shelter for these women and their children, and schooling for the children while the moms were able to go to work. And it was very contained. And when we pulled up and got out of our cars, all the little faces kind of peeking out at us through the windows was just such wonder of, who are these people and why are they here, right? And I think I told you I'm usually never at a loss for words. So I really try to make myself comfortable wherever I'm at. And so I walk into this room, and there are these long folding tables and groups of women sitting around these folding tables, beautiful colored saris on. It was the most colorful thing I'd ever seen in my life. And they are literally making a mirror that Pier 1 sold at the cash wrap for $1. It was a little pocket jeweled mirror. And when you think about it, it'd be very easy to kind of take the mirror and put glue all around it and then just kind of put it face down, in the beads, and voila, there it is, it's done. No, every piece of glass, every bead was put with tweezers or fingers onto this little mirror. And I thought to myself, and we charge $1 at the cash wrap for these. If people knew the story of the dollar mirror, it could be a $2 mirror. I don't know. But it was more to me about the story. So I pulled up a chair and I sat at the table, one of the tables with the women. Well, you would have thought that, this was, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, American is sitting next to me. And so they gave me one of my own blank mirrors and a little box of jewels and beads. Well, I have chubby American fingers. So this wasn't working for me. And my mirror looked horrible. I mean, it was so ugly. I was so embarrassed. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this beautiful hand coming over and handing me some tweezers. And from then on, I was golden. I could do the tweezer action. And so I still have the mirror. One half of it was pre-tweezer and the other half was with tweezer. And it's a gentle reminder to me of that experience, but also how people were willing to help. And all around the world, people are willing to help. And just in that one experience, in that $1 mirror.
It sounds like when you worked with Alex Smith, who was the CEO of Pier 1 at that time,
Mm-hmm.
these stories became very important to the company. The stories became important to the consumer. If you're catering to this armchair traveler, then you needed to make sure that you're building value in where this came from and what went into it, and the passion and the heart and the places. How did that actually get communicated organizationally? And then how did that end up falling out of the mouths of the salesperson or being on a tag on a piece of merchandise in Pier 1? It sounds like that was the vision. Did I get that part right?
You did get that part right. And the buzz right now is all about storytelling. Well, these were the original storytellers. It's easy to buy beautiful product and point and pick and bring it into your store, merchandise it, all of that. But if you're not telling the story behind it, then it's just another product on a shelf, right? And so Pier 1 was masterful. They had a wonderful, wonderful marketing team who brought all of these stories. We would come back as merchants and tell these stories and show videos, and they would create shelf talkers and signs and beautiful catalogs, and ultimately a website that was able to take people there. And I don't know if you remember walking into a Pier 1 store, but one of the most unique things about it was the smell, right? and it's a wonderful spice and apple and natural materials. And I remember thinking to myself, if we could develop a fragrance that was the Pier 1 signature fragrance, how do we capture how that smell is when you walk in and what emotion it evokes? So the candle buyer at the time and I invited 5 different fragrance houses to come and travel to a dozen Pier 1 stores just to smell them and then go back and formulate fragrance that captured that essence. It was the most phenomenal experience to go through. And it ended up, we actually ended up between two. And so we tested both of them and they both tested very well. Oh no, what do you do? Call it one thing and call the other one the other thing. But how fun. I mean, that's what I mean by when I think about experiences and being able to do things like that. It was really,
I would love
it
to be
was
a
special.
salesperson at that store when the executive team just kind of like starts walking around sniffing. No, we're just smelling things out. That's all we're doing here.
Yeah, we're just well, but they're in that environment every day, and so they became an important part of that journey. What is it when you first walk in? Does it smell as strong? By the end of the day, maybe you don't want to smell it. I don't know, but they were the kind of the voice of reason during it as well. They were definitely part of the journey.
So what'd you end up doing with it? Did you end up making candles and selling the
We
candles?
did. We
And they
did. We
sold
sold
well?
they sold well. We did candles, we did reed diffusers. At the time, Bath and Body Works had just come out with those wallflower plugins. And so we were trying to capture and develop our own wallflower version of it. It was true product development. It was both an art and a science. It was beautiful.
What, just for my own following my curiosity, what ended up happening to Pier 1?
So there are a lot of theories out there what happened, and I'd like to think of it as um, when e-commerce came back on, because the for the period of time I was there, right up until the very end of the last year, we didn't have an e-commerce site, and the street was very adamant that we get into the e-commerce business, and rightfully so. I mean, we should have been in that business, and there was so much focus on what I like to say one store, which was the e-com site, that 700 stores suffered. And I go back to remembering what got you to the dance and not losing sight of that, but being able to evolve at the same time. And it just became very difficult and the culture changed. And so I do think that it had a lot to do with that. I wasn't privy to anything really behind the scenes, but from what I could tell and what I was a part of, that seemed to be a big.
Okay, so how do you, when you coach people, when you're working with folks, how do you balance that message of, hey, what made you great? What got you here? What are you best in the world at? With things are changing. Check out this AI stuff. Are you having to kind of like tease things out and understand, okay, what are the principles about what made you great, but it's time to change? I heard a saying one time, change isn't necessary because survival isn't mandatory. And I think about that every once in a while, especially with the dynamics and the conditions that are present in the world today. So when you say, what got you to the dance, how do you kind of balance those things? How do you think about it these days?
I think about it just in the word that you said. It's balance. There's an honoring, if you will, of the brand journey, the customer journey, the story. But then there's also an obligation to evolve. There's an obligation to be relevant. And there is a very, very careful balance, because if you go too far, one way, then the scale gets very topsy turvy. And certainly if you stay the way you are, then other people are going to pass you. And so it's really pace and flow of where your company's at, what can be integrated so that it can be elevated. And that's how I think about it.
Let's go back to square one. You got somebody that is a next generation leader that you work with. They're like, I want to start a company. I want to start it today. What are some of the things I need to do? I mean, is it product, pricing, positioning, thinking about how I use AI to be the most nimble? I know it's a big, wide open question, but if somebody's thinking about, let's call it something in the mattress business, how would you nurture them along?
The first thing I would say is what's the problem you're trying to solve? Right? I mean, because if you don't identify that and you're not very clear and focused on that, then you're just going to become a me too. Oh, I want to start my own consulting business. Well, guess what? Consultants are a dime a dozen out there. What are the pain points that you're going to address? What are the problems that you see? What are you hearing from people? What is the problem you're going to solve? Boom, that's number one. Number two, who's my target customer for this? Understanding that, yes, it could be the kid right out of school, but are you going to make money at that? I don't know. I mean, it's okay if that's what you want it to be, but you probably want to think a little bit higher based on the problem that you're trying to solve. And if it's for students, again, I go back, I'm not saying that that's not an opportunity, because it's a huge opportunity. And Lord knows our education system could use all the help from experienced people like you and I, that they can. But I think it's most important, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And I read this book called Starting a Startup. And what I love about it is the way that it's written, because it is no bullshit. And it is, listen, half the ideas that you're thinking about right now suck, but you don't know that yet. You don't know that until you vet it through with people. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to do this and expect it to work. And some people are real smart and gifted that way, but more often than not, it's about networking, it's vetting, it's asking questions, it's listening more than talking to see if there's something there. And when I first, started to ideate around next gen growth, I had so many different facets. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much experience. I can do this, I can do that, I can help this person, I can help that person. And I ended up taking a master class that helped me realize that I can't be all things to all people, but I can solve a problem out there. So what is the problem I'm going to try to solve? And then who is my target customer? And then build the roadmap, build the pitch deck, build the structure around getting results. But before you do anything, and before you invest in over education and buying the latest, greatest, this and that, just do some grassroots networking and understand, if you're passionate about the bedding industry, what are some of the pain points out there right now? Ask those questions. Find a common denominator. Then you'll know that you can provide a solution for it. You'll discover what that solution is. You'll help those customers discover what that solution is.
I think that's a good refrain too, or a good anchoring thought process, which is, hey, if you're going to do something new, maybe you are an established business owner. Well, we're going to put in this new store in the town a couple miles over. Well, what problem are you solving? Do you know there's a problem there? If you're bringing in a new product line, what problem is that solving? Mm-hmm. And if that can't be articulated, or you don't have that problem, maybe you're hunting for issues.
Or maybe you're hunting for something to do. And you're kind of doomed from the very beginning, because people don't need it, or it's not solving an issue, or it's not helping people through something. And yes, very much agree.
And I think the marketer in me sometimes says, if you can identify, sometimes people don't know they have that problem, but you can, with your creativity and your clarity of communication, you can let them know they have that problem. I think about Bombas, the socks. There were radio commercials that would come on, and the guy would say something to the effect of like, wiggle your big toe. You feel that line? You can feel a line right beside your big toe. That's because socks are made with a seam right there. It's terrible. We fixed it. I mean, people weren't walking around going, man, I really have a sock issue.
Right.
But they had made a more comfortable sock, and they figured out a way to turn something into a problem so they could communicate, we have a more comfortable sock.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the part of me is like, okay, are you solving a problem? Is there a target audience? Who's your target audience? And then how are you going to, with precision and cut through the clutter, messaging, get through to the people? My friend Matt Smith always says it's not the best product that wins. It's the most known product that wins. So how do you
Yes.
become known? Well, you could spend a pile of money. You can do things that are viral. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to skin that cat. And I think that goes all the way full circle back to talking about strategy.
Yes, it does. Brilliant how you came full circle. Thank you. One thing we didn't touch on was Nora's most excellent New York trip. Do we have time?
I've been waiting on it. So I heard about this story, and it reminded me of like the phrasing of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So Nora's most excellent New York adventure. Tell us that story.
Okay, so in 2008, I along with others, lost my job. I mean, this was not the most wonderful time in the history of America. The bottom dropped out of the financial market. I was at Lane Bryant at the time, and the entire executive suite was basically wiped out, going through a hostile takeover. And so we found ourselves we were in Columbus, so we found ourselves at Smith and Walensky at the bar, kind of, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. And I forgot to mention to you earlier that that's also when I discovered LinkedIn, and it became my best friend during this. So Nora's most excellent New York adventure came around, there's many executive recruiters out there, but they represent companies. And I felt like if I took myself to New York and marketed myself to these executive recruiters, that this kind of reverse recruiting would start, right? And so the adventure started. It was over 2 days. I met with probably 10 or 12 executive recruiters that I had appointments for. And we represent companies, not people. And I said, well, don't you think there's a business here? Like, maybe I should have started it myself in hindsight. But so a lot of great conversation. I still keep in contact with many people at these companies, but the last company on the last day was Herbert Mines and Associates. And I met with this wonderful woman named Kristen Dennehy. She's still there. We recently got reunited at a Women in Retail Leadership conference. And, she knew me before our daughter was born. And so we've known each other for years now. But anyway, and so we were talking, and she said, have you ever thought about the home business? And I said, no, not with feeling, but tell me what you're thinking. And she said, I just placed the CEO at Pier 1. I just placed the chief merchant there. I'd like you to consider Pier 1 and go and visit a few stores and, this, that, and the other thing. And I would love to be able to present you to them. And I thought, okay, this sounds really interesting. Well, I thought that World Market bought Pier 1. And they didn't. Pier 1 was actually looking at buying World Market. And so, honestly, I had to do some research on the company. I hadn't been in a Pier 1 store in a long time. And one thing led to another, and I flew to Fort Worth and Dallas, Fort Worth, and interviewed. And I remember interviewing with the chief merchant. And then she asked me, what time my flight was and if I could stay a little bit longer so that I could meet with the CEO, who was Alex Smith. And, who's going to say no to that? I mean, I'll sleep in the airport, if I have to. And, one thing led to another. And I packed up my family and we moved to the Dallas Fort Worth area. And I went to work for Pier 1 and, just loved it, like I said earlier. But had I not taken myself, think about this, had I not taken myself on Nora's most excellent New York adventure, it would have never happened. And it goes back to controlling your destiny. If you have the wherewithal and you have the means and you have the vision, why not? and I wasn't getting anywhere. It was such a tough job market. I had to do something that nobody else was doing. And I'm so grateful that whatever intervention happened to help this happen for me, it's what got me in the home business, helped me fall in love with the home business.
And the home business is better now that it has you. And
Oh,
what a great story too. I always tell people, like, sometimes action reveals the answer. If you're sitting there and nothing's happening, get in the room, take action. It's going to reveal answers. It's going to reveal questions you didn't even know to ask. It's going to
mhm.
reveal pathways that would have never presented themselves if you were just sitting on the bench. So kudos to you for putting together the most excellent New York adventure. And then obviously that led to you eventually becoming, the chief merchandising officer with Nebraska Furniture Mart. And now you're doing your own thing. And what a wonderful story. Thank you so much, Nora, for being on the podcast. How can people get in touch with you?
So email is probably the easiest, Nora at nggrowth.com.
Awesome. And then, of course, you're on LinkedIn. So go check out your LinkedIn articles. And
Absolutely.
what a fun session here on the podcast. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Definitely reach out to Nora, get connected. It's like once you're in the mattress or home furnishings and mattress business, you can never get out. So I'm sure you're going to be.
Our paths will cross for sure. Thank you so, so much. I am so blessed that you were able to have me as a guest. And I was able to be a guest on your podcast, Mark. I've heard so many wonderful things about you and the fam, and just enjoyed every minute of it.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
absolutely my pleasure. We'll have to get you out to Sleep Summit next year in beautiful Bentonville, Arkansas. We've already got the dates. So it's October 6th through the 9th, 2026. If you're listening, mark your calendars. And maybe you can meet Nora there in person. How about that?
Well, there's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I did notice that there are all men on your panel.
Hey, it was the all male review this year. And so this is so funny, and not funny, haha, but funny and like, come on, gang. So the very first year, it was only men. I called up female leaders I know and admire and respect. It's like dating again. They just shut me down. They turned me down. And
No.
and then last year at Sleep Summit, we had several female speakers. This year at Sleep Summit, we didn't have any. And I've been telling executives and leaders, I said, look, if you're in a position of leadership and you don't have female executives in positions of leadership, but you have people that would be great speakers, they're trying to build their personal brand, they want to represent your
Mhm.
company, you need to put them in touch with me, and you need to stroke the check to get them there. Because if you're in a position where you don't have oversight on your budget, your travel, and complete kind of autonomy to do what you want to do, I need the support of the men in the leadership positions and the ladies in leadership positions as well. But it's a great call out. It's something we think about all the time. It is a heavily male dominated industry, and we are the fam, and we have lots of moms of the fam, and we want the moms and the sisters and the cool aunts all on stage.
100%. And if I can help in any way, you just let me know. It's a passion of mine to get that exposure for more females in our industry.
We had Nicole Cascagnano did a rock star of a job last year. Taylor Aleto, she did a great job on her panel. This year we had Katie Law on one of our panels, but man, she was lonely as the only lady.
My
So
bet.
that's the thing. If you got some great female speakers that want to be on the main stage at Sleep Summit, reach out to me. And of course, always get on our newsletter, go to thefam.com. You can subscribe, follow us on LinkedIn, get signed up for our text messages, all that fun stuff. And you can reach out to me anytime. Nora, thank you so much again for being on the show. And we'll look forward to reconnecting soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark.